I would like to go over the assignment. This is the form that you will have developed when you work through the instructions in the tutorial section of the book. I just want to talk a little bit about forms because they will be used when you study JavaScript and PHP. So every form element has a corresponding ID attribute and a corresponding name attribute. ID is for JavaScript and for CSS. Name is for the server. So here I have a simple example of a form that has two text boxes and a submit button. You can see them over here. So here we have input type equals text, and that is the default type. By varying the value of the type attribute, you will change the functionality of that box. Here's an example where we have ID equals first name, name equals first name. And you will commonly see developers using the same value because both of these are unique because they are used for different purposes. So here's the last name, ID equals last name equals last name. So every form element should always have an ID and a name. Here's our input, type equals submit. So the purpose of laying out a form is you're going to submit this information and do something with it. At minimum, you want to give that information to the owner of the form. And the only way to do that is to process it with a script such as a PHP script. Now, that is beyond the scope of the class. You will learn that when you take a PHP course. However, for purposes of demonstration, if I were to type in my name and click the submit button, you will see that it shows me first name equals Teresa, last name equals Pelkie, and this is where they got it. They got it from the name. And I can prove that if I go back and change this and run it again. There you go. First name X equals Teresa, ampersand, last name X equals Pelkie. These are called name value pairs. They are sent to the server and they are separated by an ampersand. So every form element has a name and an ID. Some elements also have values, such as checkboxes and radios. A drop-down list is a little bit different. Its values are coming from the option elements. So this is what's being sent, and consequently, it will be processed on the server. So in this assignment, you have an action coded in as an HTML file. When you click subscribe, it sends it to a fake action, submit.html. Part of your assignment is just going to create a simple page that says, thank you for subscribing to our newsletter. Now, this is what you're going to have after you complete the instructions in the book. This is what you're going to have after you complete my instructions. What we're going to have is more of an interactive form because we will be adding some nice HTML5 elements and attributes. And we'll go back to the original form. When I click, I'm giving focus. And there is a focus pseudo class that calls the change in this background color. So every time I click, and this blinking insertion point is the indication of focus. That's part of the book assignment. So this is focus. Now, when this page loads, we automatically want to see focus on the first field. That is done with an HTML5 attribute called autofocus. So you will be giving autofocus to the full name field. Also, you're going to be changing the email address so it no longer says type equals text. It's going to say type equals email, and I'll explain to you why later. You're going to add a new HTML5 element, type equals date, so that when they answer and write in their birth date, it will give them a very nice calendar here. This is new in HTML5. You're also going to add a clear the form button. Now, the clear the form button is type equals reset. You need to make sure that it has the same styles as the submit button, so you're going to have to go in, see where those styles are, and add the right selector so that this button has the same styles. You're going to have to do that also for this field and for this field, because the original styles were applied to a text box. Technically, this is no longer a text box. This is an email field. Technically, this is a date field. So the types have changed, so you need to go in and change that in the CSS. You're also going to add up here an asterisk in red indicates required field, and you're going to put that red asterisk here. You're going to do that using some HTML and CSS of your choice. So if I were to click the submit button, I cannot send that data until this field has been formed out. Therefore, this field, you're going to make it what is called a required field. That is the required attribute. This is a new HTML5 attribute. So now that I type in my name and I try to submit it again, okay, please fill out this field. Now, notice what type equals email does. If I'm not entering a valid email format to submit that, it will one by one tell me what the problem is. So type equals email will force one to type in a valid format. It doesn't mean it's a real email address, it means it's in a valid format. So these are the only two required fields. So the user should be able to go in here and enter everything, and when they click the clear form, it will clear. When I click subscribe, it will call the action of the form. Rather than seeing this message, you're going to have a nice looking page. Doesn't have to be a lot, doesn't have to be fancy, just a simple thank you page. And it's going to have the same look and feel as this form. And when you click the clear the form button, everything's going to clear.